Justin Kraus with Garage Flooring LLC inside the Garage Flooring showroom, and we're going to cover today an introduction to garage floor tiles and really some differences between the various brands and products that are out there. Before we get into it, a couple things we need to mention. First of all, brands are registered trademarks of their specific brand. We don't own a lot of those trademarks, and also the opinions that we are offering are just opinions and are not meant to be stated as fact. Before we get too much into this, I wanted to cover a couple things really for the benefit of my staff, because we get these questions a lot and they are really difficult sometimes for people to understand. When you look at a garage floor tiles have both male sides and female sides, and often people assume that the side with the loop is the male side. The side with the loop is the female side. The side that we would call the flat side is the male side, and that's because it has pegs underneath. The male pegs get inserted into the female loops, hence the name. The other thing that we like to cover is people want to know which way to orient the tiles when installing them. And that can always vary a little bit depending on where you are and what the situation is, what you have to work around, and that type of thing. But generally speaking, standing outside the garage, looking in, you want a male or flat side of the tile facing you and a male side of the tile to the left. Now, if I'm doing a simple installation and I'm only cutting the right-hand side and the back of the tile, that makes it much, much, much easier. If I'm doing a more complicated installation where I want everything to be perfectly centered, it doesn't matter quite as much. But the big thing with orienting the tiles properly is you're placing one tile, over the other tile, as opposed to placing it under it. And as you get further and further into the installation, that makes it easier. So the first tile that we're going to take a look at here, or that we are looking at here, is a Race Deck branded tile. Race Deck branded tiles tend to be a little bit more expensive than some of our other tiles, and there's a good reason for that. One of the big things that Race Deck focuses on is their locking system. One of the things that you'll notice with their locking system is that the locks are integrated into the tile structure itself. They don't just hang out there on the edge. You'll also notice a very beefy understructure to support the weight that you might be putting on that floor, which is also really, really important. And you'll notice what I would call the fit and finish on the top side of the tile is very, very strong. Race Deck has several different products out there. They've got the coin pattern, which is what you're looking at now. They also have the free flow tile, which is also what we happen to have down on our floor here. The free flow tile has a little bit different of an understructure, but performs very, very, very well. There are a lot of misconceptions with the free flow tile. One is in regard to the use of a creeper and whether or not that will work. And a creeper does tend to roll very, very well on the free flow tiles, but I'll give you this caveat. If I'm using a creeper once or twice a month, maybe even once a week, the free flow tile is going to be just fine. If I'm on a creeper all day, every day, I'd probably go with a different pattern. Another issue that comes up, people worry about, is things falling through. And there are definitely small enough screws and tacks and that type of thing that can fall through. But generally speaking, most items stay above the tile. Cleaning the tile is really, really simple. You can just shop back right through it. Next, we're taking a look at the Race Deck diamond pattern. Again, same underside as what you saw on the coin pattern. The big difference with the Race Deck diamond versus some of the other diamonds that we're going to take a look at, aside from the advantages of the locking system and the advantages of the understructure, another big difference is the way their diamonds are designed. If you look at them, they're not a true diamond. They are a very, very low profile, which means you can still roll a creeper, jacks, and that type of thing right over top of them. So that works really, really well. Now within their diamond and within some other products, they have two different versions. That is your Tough Shield tile, which is much glossier, and then you have your standard tile, which is less glossy. Now, one of the questions that we get asked a lot is what's the difference between like the Race Deck and our TrueLock HD? Now, if we're looking at going back to the free flow tile, there is not any noticeable difference between the two, other really than the package they come in. I can send out the same samples for either pattern, for either product, either brand, and you would never know the difference. They come And from the same place, they look identical, perform identical. One is with the Race Deck brand and one is with ours. But when you look at the majority of the line, there are some key differences. If we go to the understructure, you'll notice that the locks are only tied in one place, and the understructure is not near as beefy as the Race Deck understructure is. It still works very, very well, and for 80–90% of our customers, it's more than adequate, but it's definitely not for that professional garage. One thing I do like about the HD product, the smaller coins give you a better surface for rolling on, that type of thing. In the diamond pattern in the HD, it is a double diamond. Definitely not suitable for rolling casters around on a lot, rolling creepers on a lot. Not something I would do. Really, the last and final question we get in terms of differences between tile is, okay, we've talked about the difference between the Race Deck line and the difference between the TrueLock HD line, but what about this TrueLock line, our $1.99 tile? What makes it so much less expensive? Why should I go to the HD, or why should I go ahead and stick with the TrueLock tile? I think the most obvious difference is the fit and finish. The TrueLock tile is a nice tile, but it's not quite as pretty on the surface as the TrueLock HD. The other big difference when you turn it over is you'll notice the way the locking system are built. So on the Race Deck tile, your locks were tied in both sides all the way into the tile infrastructure. On the HD tile, they were tied in halfway. So one side was tied in and the other one wasn't. When you start looking at the TrueLock tile, or $1.99 value tile, they're not tied in at all. There are more of them, and that does tend to compensate a little bit, but they're not tied in. The next thing that you'll notice is the understructure is even less beefy and less dense than what you would see on the TrueLock HD tile. On a positive note, they do have 6 locks, which function very, very well, and that does tend to compensate quite a bit for the fact that they're not tied in. For $1.99 for a made-in-America tile, they do a great job. It's just important to understand the differences between that, the HD, and the Race Deck. Now, when we look at all of the tiles that we just talked about, we're talking about polypropylene or hard plastic tiles. One of the concerns that people have is the clacking noise that can happen underneath them. You'll notice with the free flow tile that I'm standing on now, we don't have that. You'll also notice that you really aren't staring at the concrete as much as you might think. The next type of tile is a much softer tile, and it's a PVC tile. With a PVC tile, you tend to get flexibility that you don't get in a polypropylene tile. You have a different type of locking system. Those locking systems are much more watertight than a polypropylene tile. The downside is when you lock together multiple colors, you tend to get a jigsaw pattern from those locking together. The other major downside is lighter colors especially, but all colors can stain from tires. So we tend to put black underneath tires, and we tend to use sealers to protect the floor. Within the PVC lines, you have some products that have advantages over others. Just about all polypropylene tiles allow moisture to wick out. The Norsk tile, which is what you're looking at now, does a very good job of allowing moisture to exit the system, whereas some of the other brands in the market don't do as well. You can see that if moisture got trapped there, it wouldn't be able to get out. That's a brief overview of the differences between the tile and some of the products that we offer. If you have any questions, feel free to comment or send us a message. Thanks and have a great day.